Hi.
Welcome to a very special Hugo Girl, the podcast where we read fantasy and science fiction novels that have won the Hugo Award and sometimes other things. But in 2023, we're staying on task.
We did it.
So we've got a Hugo winner today. And my name is Lori.
Oh, my name's Amy.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Cody.
And Cody. Cody is our guest today. He is the co-host of the Hugonauts podcast. Cody, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and or your podcast?
Sure, yeah. Our podcast, The Hugonauts, similar vibe. We just do all science fiction, and we stopped doing awards adjacent. But my friend Brent and I discuss, summarize, analyze, and recommend similar reading for science fiction novels that we love. And then we also do some author interviews sometimes. We just dropped one with Becky Chambers, which is really fun, yesterday, or Tuesday, the March 28th.
Yes,
if this is
good
released
call.
at some point in the future.
I saw that pop up on
Evergreen.
Instagram. I saw that pop up on Instagram and I gasped.
I know. I was like, oh, Becky.
You got Becky?
Yeah.
Go, Cody.
She's very, very friendly and fun to speak to, and I'm sure she'd be happy to speak to you all
What's
too
up,
if you
Becky?
ever reached out.
They also talked to our friend Joe Haldeman and
Aw.
Gay Haldeman, and they are
Joe.
so cute together.
Cute.
I love them
Mhm.
together. And importantly, Hugonauts does audio, but also video. So you have a YouTube channel. So if people
We do.
like to watch, then they
Thank
can.
God we don't
Yeah.
record ourselves in,
I know,
in
I-
visual media.
I couldn't. I couldn't do it regularly.
We have faces made for podcasts.
But fortune favors
So
the
do
bold, I
we.
guess. Good job, Hugonauts.
Also, I wanted to mention Hugo Award nominations are open. We are eligible for Best Fan Cast. Hugonauts is eligible for Best Fan Cast. And we would be honored for a spot on your ballot if you're nominating. And also, there are so many great podcasts, fan casts that are eligible that I worry about mentioning them because I'm afraid I will leave someone off, and I don't want to do that by accident. And someone is like, well, why didn't they mention me?
It's okay just to tell people to vote for us.
Okay. Yeah.
And Hugonauts
You're
second.
And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I'm here, so you have to say it. But
It's
I
ranked
appreciate
voting.
it.
So.
well, and we would be remiss if we did not mention our friend Seth at Hugo's there, who has always been a big
Yes.
supporter of us. He is awesome. And of course, our across the pond besties and co-finalists from last year, Octothorpe. And there are so many other great podcasts that I want to name, and I'm scared to miss somebody off of the list. So I like all of them, nominate them. And importantly, the fan categories don't get a lot of nominations, and that can make them at risk. Low participation can make them at risk of going away. So even if you were like, Hugo Girl sucks, I would rather you nominate, someone else and do actually nominate and participate in the fan category so that they don't just go away.
Remember Snobby McGrumpy Pants at WorldCon who was like, I only nominate novels. It's like,
Good for you.
okay, great.
I mean, you'll have to be more specific. I think there are a lot of people like that.
Well, that was the
I was
one
just
that
gonna
said that
say-
to our faces.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I've blocked that out. I'm very good at dissociating negative experiences. Okay, let's talk about this book. Today we are talking about Where Late the Sweet Birds Sang by Kate Wilhelm, and this was recommended to us by our nice friend Olav of the
Hi, Ola.
unofficial Hugo Book Club blog. So this book, we don't have any new reviews, by the way, friends. So feel free to leave us
The hell?
reviews. I know.
Some more administrative news is that I'm now writing for Nerds of a Feather.
Oh yeah.
It's very fun.
Yes, that is so cool. So is our so Haley's on the Nerds of a Feather team now, and our friend Anne Harris, who's recently just published her first short story, is on the team too.
Yeah,
Hugo girls.
I'll be doing Mandalorian reviews
Congrats.
and random book reviews too.
Love it.
Yeah, so we'll be
Awesome.
sharing those. Yeah, you should check out Nerds of a Feather and follow them on social media, and we'll be sharing your posts, especially on Twitter.
I got my first galley edition of a book, which is cool. So there's free stuff when you are a book reviewer. So.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, it's just a free ebook, but still, it's awesome.
Yeah.
You should, can you get one of those hats that has a little press
Yeah.
thingy in the bill, in the brim?
3/4.
I think you might be. I think that might
Yeah.
you might count for
I mean,
press.
I don't think I could get into like Music Midtown, but
Get you some credentials.
the Decatur Book Festival, maybe.
Like Alan, our friend from If This Goes On, which is also a Hugo eligible podcast. Alan had press stuff at what is it called? Worldcon. I almost said DragonCon, and I was like, wrong one. Today has been a long week. Okay. All right. Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang. Published in 1976. Won the Hugo and Locus in 1977, and was nominated for the Nebula in 1976, which is incorrect on Wikipedia. Wikipedia says it won the Nebula in 1977, and I said, I don't think that's right. And it wasn't right, but I don't know how to fix Wikipedia. So if you do, there's something you can fix. Let's see.
You have to be press.
Yeah. Done.
Gotta
I'm
get
on
a
it.
hat.
Haley.
Well, what's funny is that on big ticket pages, people scour it like daily for updates, but I guess
No one's looking at this but me. I'm probably the only person who's looked at that Wikipedia. Okay. So a little bit of publication history on this. There's not a ton out there that I could find, but this is a fix-up, which I think is apparent when you read it.
what's a fix-up mean?
A fix-up is when something is published in it's like serial parts, and then it's smushed into a novel and published as a novel. And so oftentimes when
That
we
makes sense.
read some stuff and it feels very disjointed, it's because it is and started out that way. And then a lot of times I think don't necessarily go through an edit. They just get smushed together. Like recall Foundation
I recall.
and how it was like reading several different small books of extremely varying degrees of quality. So the first part, as I understand it, again, there wasn't a ton of information, but as I understand it, this book is in 3 parts, and the first one was published in Orbit magazine. And then parts 2 and 3 were published separately. And I would say that probably explains why parts 2 and 3 seem like a different, better book. Okay. Plot summary time.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I didn't love summarizing this. I'm going to do my best. Okay. Told in 3 parts that span an entirely unspecified number of years, Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang is a 70s novel envisioning a post-apocalyptic community in Virginia near the Shenandoah River. The book opens when society is on the verge of collapse, which we learn through the lens of the wealthy Sumner family, and specifically through the experience of a character named David, who grows from a young child to a trained geneticist in a few pages. David and his cousin Celia are in love with each other. Don't worry too much about that. The Sumners see the impending collapse of society with enough time to prepare for it, which for them means that they develop a clandestine cloning program so that they alone can survive the apocalypse. So they do that. There are problems. Things go awry. The second and third books then follow the resulting clone community, or second, third sections of the book, follow the resulting clone community and the conflict they face when 2 of their own, Molly and Ben, go rogue and produce an ordinary human child, Mark. And spoiler, Mark eventually, I guess, is a special boy and eventually saves humanity by kidnapping a bunch of women and becoming a cult leader.
He's the Modib.
He is, but like, I feel like he's creepy, the creepy one. Okay, so that's the plot. Any big stuff that anyone wants to add to that?
There's a lot of nature.
There's a lot of nature.
You left out all the incest.
Well, I just figured we could discuss incest in general discussion because there is so much of it. Also, I would like to know if clone-cest is incest. Well, we can talk about that in just a minute.
Yeah, I feel like that was a question raised that it never answered.
It's
Yeah.
more
That
like
it was-
masturbation.
I
Really,
was
if you think
just
about it.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say that if the kids are in the car, this might not be the best episode for the kids. Because I was going to say, is it more like incest or more like masturbation?
Kind of is
I don't
more
know.
like masturbation.
And I think incest is going to color almost every single section of our. Because I have it in Goodreads, I've got it in Talking Points, it's all over the place.
All right. Goodies from Goodreads would like to
Can the name of
offer.
this episode be Incest is Best.
Sure.
Yay!
All right. I'd like to offer our guest the first shot at goodies from Goodreads. So, did you find any reviews you want to share?
I found one of each, but the 1 stars are always more fun, aren't they?
Yes.
So I have one from Strocto Perry, which was, I couldn't get on board with the basic premise, so the rest was difficult to enjoy. Clones are just inherently different. Lots of, and this is the part that I really love. Lots of capital get off my lawn energy to oppose the only sane man protagonists. Not for me.
That is very well said.
Not for me.
All right. Haley, what you got?
So I have one that I think y'all will both have. So I'm going to read my dark horse. So my sweet spot is the 2 stars because
Ooh.
the 1 stars are just full of rage and the second ones are like more nuanced sometimes. So
Okay.
Babs says, this book starts in a direction I hadn't anticipated. It starts with a full dose of incest rage. Not just incest, but how we should feel the frustration of our main character as he learns that he cannot in fact mate with his beloved first cousin.
Mate.
So what I call that in the opening part of the book is Chekhov's incest prohibition. Because as we know, that trigger gets pulled a little while later.
Wait, can I have the Chekhov's blank is one of my favorite jokes on earth, and I have a Chekhov's jar of lentils on my shelf that's sitting sideways, and it's not going to end well. But I'm not going to fix it because it doesn't fit in the container right. So it's Chekhov's lentils.
The lentils are going to fall, and David is going to bone his cousin. All right.
Bless.
Amy, what do you have?
Well, mine are only okay, but I'll read you this one. Ellis on Goodreads said, early on, this book violated my cardinal rule of dystopias, which is pick one scenario. As fun as nuclear annihilation, pollution, famine, plagues, climate change, and all the rest are, it is really irksome when they all become part of your doomsday scenario and lets you lazily assume that anything in the world could happen post-apocalypse because you weren't disciplined enough to just pick one.
Okay.
And I think that's true.
I do think that's true.
Too many apocalypse.
There are a lot of things going on.
Apocalypse.
I mean, it does sort of feel like that sometimes, though.
Yeah, I kind of dug it. I was like, oh man, and it's irradiated shit.
Like, everybody's impotent. There was radiation. There was climate change.
After Cyteen, we could have read the phone book and I would have been like, 10 stars. Perfect.
Yeah, I will say one nice thing for this book is I understood every sentence in it.
I thought it was a page turner. Like, I was like,
It was
okay.
easy to read.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I have 2, and they're both okay, so I struggle with choosing one.
That's how I felt.
So I've got Zoe, gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. Too many white men deciding to be the ones in charge, deciding they own the land, deciding they get to be the progenitors, and not good enough science on the cloning. And then
I had that written down.
Oh, you had that one?
Yeah.
I've got another one that's longer. I'm going to read a little bit of it. It says, I knew this book wasn't going, this is JJ. I knew this book wasn't going to work for me once the first generation began complaining that the clones lacked some essential spark of humanity. Because, my dudes, these are human children you brought into the world and raised, and if they don't connect with other people in the way you want, man, that's on your child raising. And then it got worse with each generation. Quote, why is this boy cleverer than ours? We must ask him. He says he read books. Too bad we can't replicate that, and the next generation must be stupid. Oh well. This is for sure a heavy-handed argument for the power of individuality, which makes it more dated. It's such a boomer me generation fear. Like, man, let the collective save humanity. The idea that collectivism in any form is dangerous seems insulting to me at this point.
So I saw that quote too, and I want to talk about that in general discussion because I don't know which side this book actually
Me
leans.
too.
I don't either.
I have some thoughts.
I
as well.
think there are no heroes in this book, actually.
I agree with
I
it.
think we all look like shit, kind of.
But I've seen them clones in the woods. They're not smart.
It's true. They're not smart. They're not smart. Okay, let's move into general discussion.
Can I do one quick one?
Yeah.
Okay. One of my least favorite parts of science fiction is gross incest parts. Am I crazy? I can immediately think of 6 science fiction books with gross incest parts, and I don't even read that much science fiction. Yeah.
You know, Game of Thrones gave me a high tolerance for incest. I think they're in love. Yeah, Cody?
Wait.
Oh, I had the same one. I almost chose that one.
That was my favorite.
That
But
was a
like,
good one.
Game of Thrones got me used to it, and with
Right.
House of the Dragon, I'm like, uncle, daughter.
After episode 1 with Jaime and Cersei, like nothing will ever shock me after that.
I mean,
yeah.
the end of episode 1 was just like
nothing will ever. I'm like, oh, a couple of cousins having consensual sex after the apocalypse. I mean, what's the harm? What's the harm?
Yeah.
Okay. So my first general discussion note was
Wait, can I answer
Chekhov's
that question?
incest.
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
As a general discussion point?
Yeah.
The harm is that they then created a bunch of clones that were prone to want to do incest because the family was predisposed to incest.
It was because the family was predisposed. I never thought about that. All right. It sounds like we need to get this incest out of our systems.
What else is going to be there to talk about?
All right. So, for folks who might not have read it, I'm so sorry. And what we're talking about here is this family, they clone themselves. They're trying to save humanity, which really just, they're trying to save themselves. And they clone themselves. And then eventually they start cloning in like clutches almost. So there'll be like 8 Haleys that have been born. And so they share a hive mind. And they have what they call mat play, which means they get out a sex mat and they have like a clone human centipede orgy on their
Just
on
writhing.
their mat.
It's kind of like jujitsu. I don't know.
Listen, when I read the last book,
with or without other groups.
Yes, there
of
might be.
5 or
Sometimes
6.
you might invite the 3 Brads from down the hall.
but the important thing is it seems like there are always some clones involved. Like they don't really go one-on-one. That seems to be taboo. And like they don't want to do it. So is that more like incest or more like masturbation? Because they share a mind.
I
In
think,
a lot of not exactly, but they share a consciousness.
But
for
I think
sure.
they'd be able to tell if what they were doing was pleasuring the other person.
I think so too.
I think apart from the emotional
Titillating.
trauma of like family members having sex, one of the primary taboos of incest is because it creates genetically, weird offspring.
Yeah,
If
it can
that's
have
taken
bad results.
And if that's taken off the table, no harm, no foul. I don't want to do it, but yeah.
Well, also,
I don't have a clone, so I don't know if I want to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's more
Does it make
like
you gay? I don't know.
I think it's more like masturbation because there's the scene where there's a group of clones that are going to be sent off to go to Washington, D.C. to hunt for supplies. And this has terrible results. But the night before, everyone's very nervous. And our main character at that point is a woman named Molly and a young woman named Molly. And they're all very nervous. And she finds out that the doctors in the community have drugged everyone's drink so that they can get some sleep the night before their voyage. So she's been drugged, and then her sisters take her to the mat. And I was like, well, this is really thorny. Like, is this a sexual assault? But then as I understood more about how, like, they share a mind, I was like, I don't know. Is it like she's having a drunk wank? I don't know. I don't
She
know.
didn't seem to mind.
She didn't seem to. She seemed fine.
It's like one Christmas light being out. Like everything else is working. I don't know.
A 20% drunk wink.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's like The Stranger when you sit on your hand and then masturbate. And
Oh my god, I have to put so many content warnings in there.
But anyway.
Okay. Also, I would like to just apologize to our friend Olav, who is such a thoughtful, smart person who loves this book.
You know he thought about it.
And we haven't, for 22 minutes, we've talked about masturbation and clone cest.
It's a thought experiment.
So just like, but here's the thing,
integral part of the book.
It is, and
It is.
that
It's important.
that particular part where she was drugged and having sex with her sisters, I was like, is this okay? And I landed on, I think it probably is okay since they do share a mind. But it was like an interesting thing to think about.
It's also one of the ways that there's a lot of ways that they end up othering Mike at the end of Mark. At the end of the book. And one of the ways that he ends up getting othered is because he doesn't subscribe to the sexual mores of this community, right? So he wants to pair up with this one girl, and they pair up a bit, and then she's like trying to like get him to come to the mat play,
And then they're so mean to him.
and he won't do it, and then it's like it was I don't know. It's whenever I think it would speak to anybody who's sexually othered in a society, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
not unlike that.
Yeah.
So.
It's flipped on its head, and he's a monogamous heterosexual,
I know.
non-clone, non-incest.
Won't someone think of the hetero men?
I kind of viewed it as two different things, like the mat play as masturbatory, and then the mat play with the other group of one name, 5 or 6 individuals, as felt incesty, even though it's not technically, because they're all clones. Like, they're all live in this small community, and they continually grow out of the same DNA stock.
Yeah.
And they keep sleeping with each other. So I almost felt like it was like both things
Interesting.
depending on the scenario.
Well, I think you're right, because everybody who was an original human DNA prototype, they were all related to each other. So all of the resulting clones are related to each other.
Right.
So they are all still having cousin sex.
So why?
I think that the ceiling is incest, and then there's some masturbation underneath. It never blooms into normal sexual relations.
Not even when he makes off with all the breeders.
No, because he's related to all of them too.
And
Oh yeah, he's the
and he's
still at least
only
light
man
incest.
there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so much for genetic.
Well, and then I thought, so when he takes the breeders off and it's like maybe 20 women tops, like they all have the same father. So if they're going to create a new society 20 years later,
It's like the Bible.
It won't
Yeah,
work.
it's very good.
It is kind of like the. So what do you think Kate was doing with all this incest and masturbation? I mean, why is it in there?
Discuss. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
Cody, what do you think?
yeah.
Discuss. What's going on here?
Thanks for throwing it on me. No idea.
I
I have no idea.
Actually, so.
I have other ideas why, the group versus the individualism themes are really strong, but I don't think that those really cross over into the sexual aspects as much. I feel like she was just like, well, I don't know, what are people going to do? Probably this.
Yeah. I think maybe Lori mentioned this in a group chat a couple weeks ago, but like 70s feminists were really into like breaking apart sexual taboos, so like monogamy and incest and things like that. So I think this is just a classic example of taking that to its limit.
I think I agree, and I think it's interesting that she did that because she also she did a lot of things that felt very 70s. That was one of them, and then having these people form a commune to live apart from the mainstream and that blossoming into the future of humanity was also felt very 70s. But then she also has breeders.
Breeders, my favorite band.
So it's like she has this sort of, women's lib sexual, liberation situation going on. And she also has this very like unfortunate patriarchal problematic thing going on. And I can't decide what the comment is there.
Well, I think the comment on there for me was pretty clear because when Molly, who is one of the clones who goes on the expedition to Washington, D.C., and it turns out that her separation from the group basically individuates her. So she's no longer a hive mind. She is an individual. And so she's kind of ostracized. And then they find out she's fertile. So they send her to the like a breeder jail where they keep the fertile women. And I think through her experience, we see how awful that is. So I think for me, I thought that Wilhelm was being pretty clear about the horror of that. Like, Molly lost 18 months because she was being drugged and inseminated while she was too drugged to even remember it.
It was horrible.
And she really talks about it. Like, she can't remember it, but she knows what happened to her, and she ruminates on it in pretty explicit terms that were very upsetting. So I think that that's where Wilhelm falls on that she's very much trying to show the horrors of women in particular not having bodily autonomy.
Did it make sense to you that these people wouldn't have created some way to, since all these clone clutches are
Litters.
litters are so, they're intermeshed. They're one organism in a lot of ways.
They're Borg.
Oh.
Existence is futile, everyone. Would it make sense that they would not develop a way to keep the clan people together?
Yeah,
gestation outside the body or something like that, so they wouldn't have to just ostracize one part of all of these.
And I didn't buy the breeder ostracization. I would have thought
it didn't make any sense.
If I were making this up, I think that I probably would have had fertile women in some like pedestal position almost. So they're still probably controlled. They still probably have kind of bad lives, but also there's like lip service paid to, these are the mothers. These are the ones
like
who,
give
life.
something.
Something like that. Yeah. The sequestration of them, I didn't, it wasn't super credible to me.
The only thing I could think of that made it credible in this world was the clones definitely don't see themselves as human, and I could see them wanting to excise anything that seemed human. So birth is very human.
Maybe it was just too spooky to them.
Yeah, like it reminded them where they came from, kind of thing.
One of my favorite quotes is one of the original cloner, the first members of the family that founded there. So I know it takes place in like a hotel, but it's the Best Western in like my mind's. But so
Wait, what are you talking about a hotel? Wait.
well, so like they like go and like take over a hotel to like start their clone factory when the world is going to shit, right? It's a hotel, right? Or no, it's a hospital. That's what I meant.
Hospital.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I like it better to Best Western,
Yeah,
honestly.
but in my head, it's like a rundown motel. Anyway, once the clones start like being like we're better than you, somebody says, "Don't be an ass. You're not a separate species." And I don't know enough about biology to know like if this would make something past Homo sapiens, like Homo similarians or something. But yeah, like I don't know if they. Well, and that's why I didn't know why they needed the breeders. They could just clone forever. Why have new
Well, because I think genetic diversity for one thing, and I think also I thought maybe it was a bulwark against what's happening. Like the more you clone, the dumber you get.
The other thing is they were running out of supplies to do their like
the
uterine
they needed to
replicator
be
kind
able
of
to do
thing,
that.
so they needed to reproduce that way as like a backup, basically.
They needed rangers to go out to DC and Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I think we got that out of our system.
I mean, it'll come back up. It's like
It will.
like butter over the bread. I mean, it's gonna get everywhere. There's no.
So
How much butter do you put on your bread?
I don't know if I toasted it.
I mean, is
then-
it going? The
then a
butter's going
lot.
everywhere.
It's melted butter.
It's just
Yeah.
I think I want to talk about some things that I think are well done.
okay.
I thought that when she was describing the natural world, her writing was really beautiful. She obviously is a person who loves trees and leaves and snow and things like that. And so I think she did a really good job with that.
Also, part of the '70s thing, like humans and nature
Silent
Yeah.
Spring by
go
Rachel
together
Carson.
Yeah.
exactly, and like
But that's nice to see because this kind of stuff is more associated with fantasy than science fiction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I don't have a good sense of what the buildings look like. And I think I read that in a review that someone was like, I don't know what any of these things look like. And I kind of was like, well, I don't care that much. In my imagination, they're just sort of like blank dormitory type places.
Yeah.
with mats.
With mats that they put away because they would say they pull out their mat.
right.
So
They're
they've
special.
got
Well, they gotta
mat
clean them.
storage.
They gotta
fun
clean
time.
them. Yeah.
Oh my
Gotta put that
god.
tea tree oil.
because they really like Japanese culture. That's the only
Yeah.
reason.
Why don't they have sex in their bed? I guess that because the bed
Mats have more room.
Yeah, you can't put like 10 people
And
in
then
one
you can't hose down your bed. You want to be able to get up in it and go to sleep right after.
It was I imagined it like they didn't have beds. Like the mats were in,
Well,
loo beds, and they pulled them out for
Oh.
They
fun
snuggled together.
and sleep.
They took Molly out of her bed and put her on the mat. That's the
Yeah,
only reason I think
yeah,
that they're-
yeah.
And
I
they
think they
discuss
had
how
beds.
Mark is sitting in a bed
Yeah.
when he's staying with the Berry brothers.
That's their culture, y'all.
Some of the names are so funny. Okay, I'd
So
like to
70s.
I would like to address too. So the Sumner family, they clone themselves. They're like, we must survive. So this is like this white waspy rich family. That's all that's left of humanity.
It's a Succession family.
Oh no!
I was thinking about
I was
that.
thinking about how we don't really see any culture out of them. We see their sexual
because we
habits
don't
and taboos.
I have a note about that.
They don't seem to have much culture. They don't. We know that the Sumner family celebrated Christmas, but we don't see holiday. I think they have some holiday that I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like some made up observance that they have. They do their ceremony for the lost when someone dies or gets sequestered in the breeder Best Western, but we don't see much culture
There's no
with
art.
them.
Yeah.
They're just all like a bunch of berries and mollies.
Well, and that's why Molly and Mark are so ostracized because, like, she's an incredible artist and she's capturing life with a pen on paper, and they're just like, this is weird.
Which is interesting because they find it useful to begin with. So they send her on this trip because she's good with maps. She is able to remember and reproduce things that she saw. So she's well suited to go on this expedition. And then she comes back and they're like, well, now you're too good at drawing.
Yeah.
So you have to go live in this old house, which is the original Sumner family home, which we learned in the opening chapters. You would think like that this is just useless information, but they tell us that grandfather Sumner has basically every book that's ever written, except recent popular bestsellers.
So nobody can read a
There's
John
like
Grisham.
no Da Vinci Code, nothing like that, which is such a funny, snooty detail.
But it's a very good detail.
It
I
is.
absolutely know that person.
Well,
you know?
and then later
Yeah.
you realize, like, when they read that library, they're probably mostly reading a shit ton of nonfiction, which becomes useful. Like, if he had immersed himself in 200 Babysitters Club books, like I did, then he would know, like, the kids like crayons and candy, but that wouldn't get him anywhere when he's in the forest. So he read all of this extensive library of nonfiction, and that makes him the special boy who
No.
can save the world.
I would say, like friction helps build empathy in human beings. That's been like proven. But if you have a telekinetic link, you already have empathy automatically. So.
That's true. Only with your telekinetic friends.
So it's like, so the berries don't have it with the Marys.
It didn't seem like it.
Yeah.
But I think they
You
would have thought they were more important than a non-clone.
Yeah.
Because remember in the beginning of the book when there was some kind of collapse and we still had original humans and we had like G1 humans and then we had clones. And like something happened and someone was injured and the clones got their clones, but they didn't help the original human. And they were like, the original humans were like, they don't care about us at all. Can you
Yeah, it
believe
was part
it?
of the turn.
Oh,
Part
Yes.
of the turn to the clones, like to the second part of the book, where you're like, oh, the clones really don't like the individuals.
And then they send David away.
I thought she did a really good job of making these clones seem like
Creepy.
it's like if Hal won. You know?
I saw a review.
I saw that one too,
Did you
yeah.
see that? There was a review that reproduced a section of dialogue from 2001, and it was between Hal and David. And they said that there's a section of dialogue in this book that is with David and somebody else, and
It's
it's
true.
almost identical dialogue.
Well, I kept thinking that when I was reading it. It's like, because the way that the clones kept reacting to what the humans were doing, they were just like, I can't let you do that, you know, like,
Yeah.
and then if Hal had gotten his way, this is what everybody would be like.
They're
Oh
so
my
rigid.
God.
They're so rigid.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, I did think that the humans and David in particular were pretty awful. I thought David was really awful. And there's this point where,
How come?
I think he was awful.
Why?
So he's in love with his cousin. Finally, after the apocalypse, she
Can't
comes
help
back.
who you love, Lori.
No, I know. I'm okay with that. I said I'm okay with that. Jamie
Well,
and
you said-
Cersei conditioned me
You
for
said,
this.
I don't like David, and
Yeah.
the first thing you said was he's in love with his cousin.
This is just context. So Celia. So Celia got the 1970s COVID and she did not recover, and they had their love and they cloned some people for a little while and then she died. And he was very sad. And so at this point, I think David's probably like 40 something.
Oh, I know where you're going.
And he is lusting after these,
yeah.
like, I think probably late adolescent age Celia clones. And he propositioned one of them, and he just couldn't believe that she was like, no way. And at one point, when like the narration is kind of through David's eyes, and he says something or thinks something to himself about how the clones don't seem interested in sex with the elders at all. Sir, you have called yourself an elder. People are not supposed to, very young people are not supposed to engage in sex with their elder. Why can't the elders have sex with each other? Because they
gets
all
older.
remember being related.
He
So I
gets
guess
older
it's too
and they
weird.
stay the same age.
It was just. Yeah, that's like the dream, right? He's
Right.
like, oh, my girlfriend stayed the
She's
same
always
age
gonna be 16.
forever. Yeah. So
Yeah, it was definitely like like, I don't think you sound how you think you're coming off.
Yeah,
buddy,
he's
kind
like,
of moment.
you don't feel bad for me that the teens
Yeah.
don't want to have sex with the elders. So I just thought he was really awful. And it's kind of like that review I read where they were like, if you have complaints about the way these children have grown up, they're your children. So
You know what's funny is I read that whole thing where David was trying to come on to baby Celia 2 or whatever her name
he
was.
didn't even know her name.
Well, I read it as much more like, look how pathetic he's become. And
Oh, yeah.
like, so I didn't read it as like, I maybe we were reading it in the same tone and you were just
I
commenting
think
on
both
how
is
he was.
true.
Okay.
I think he has become pathetic, but I didn't like him. I didn't like the Sumners, period. Their arrogance was
Yeah,
deeply
they're
alarming
not very
to me.
likable.
So I didn't
There's
like...
a really great line I singled out about Clarence, which I just thought was like some great writing, which was a stranger with a lot of money who expected a lot of obedience from the world.
Yeah.
And I just think that nails that type
it's like
so well.
if some sort of like tycoon family
They're playing God, literally.
Yeah.
all that was left.
That's all that was left.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good example, Cody, of how she just sometimes has some real strokes of genius with her writing. I really enjoy that. Amy is laughing because she noticed in my notes where I have in all caps, Matt play, oh no. But we've already talked about that a lot.
Should we talk about Matt play?
We can talk about it. So for the listener, if you don't know, Matt play is, if you're just joining us.
If you tried to skip ahead because there was too much incest, it's not going to work.
Sorry. So yeah, I just thought David sucks, and I did not care when they sent him away because he was creeping on the girls, and you probably should get sent away when you creep on the girls.
Do you think she purposefully was making a point that these rich white Vermont people, as they're in Appalachia, but whatever,
Virginia, I think.
Shenandoah.
I just pictured them as the family from Get Out, but they that this type of person would do this type of thing, not invite in any other cultures to what they're doing, and then thereby ensure the doom.
I don't
ensure
know
their
if
own
she
doom.
was making that point.
She just didn't even think about it. You think?
That's kind of my guess, and here's why. I had something of a rant about the Amy. I think we've talked about this, or maybe you saw my tweet about it. There's a part early in the book where Celia is talking about how she has this like moral responsibility to go to Brazil, and she's like 19 or something, and teach them how to farm. Otherwise, they're all going to starve to death. She says because nobody down there knows how to farm, and it is like without irony. There's never any commentary on the idea that one young white lady with an undergraduate degree knows better than an entire continent, because she was just like, South America, they don't know how to do
All
it. An
of South
entire
America.
continent somehow has survived for millennia without Celia's help. And I mean, this is just without irony. There's never any follow-up on like, guess you were maybe like a little overconfident, Celia. I mean,
It didn't work.
It didn't work.
She's like,
But
turns out they have quinoa.
I think I don't think that Wilhelm was like aware of I've made this like white homogenous future.
It's an inadvertent, really good comment though.
Totally.
Because we would do that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Ugh.
I mean, there's some reasons that I could understand why a community would not want to share what they are doing, because at this point, people are probably fighting for resources. So, like, there's some sense in it, but also the outcome of it is not good. And there's nothing in here that made me think that she was intentionally saying, look how bad it would be if one rich white family replicated themselves. I think it's more like, look how bad it would be if we lived in a collective society.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about that? Let's talk about whether she's critiquing collectivism or individuality or both.
I can't decide, because on the one hand, she definitely seems to be saying a small collective group can withstand more than a large, group that's not working together, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But on the other hand, and even in the end, it's a small group that's thriving at the end, that Mark creates. I mean, it's growing slowly.
And they do still have to cooperate.
Right, and it's a cooperative society. There's no money that we know of, that sort of thing. But on the other hand, the evil people are the absolute definition of a collective. So they can literally read each other's thoughts. So I don't know. I don't know where I land on that.
I think it's a really interesting, I mean, part of the reason why I ended up liking a lot about this book, that's one of my favorite speculative fiction topics, is individualism versus community, and how I think she was trying to striving to kind of strike a point about balance, that you need a little bit of both. Like you said, the community organization is what helps them survive, but then it doesn't help them survive in the long run, and also their spirit and everything that makes human a human dies out when the individual is crushed out of a community that's telepathically linked, essentially, or like clusters of telepathically linked individuals. And I just thought Wilhelm was kind of making an open-ended point that you need a little of both, that they...
communalism is good, but conformity is bad.
Hey, yeah, good job.
Yeah, good summation.
You get an A on that paper.
I did it, everybody.
Yeah, you did it.
I think it depends on the situation in which the society finds itself, too. Like, right now, if it's just, can we survive the next 100 years? Like, I think a lot goes out the window in terms of, like, Is art important? Like, if we only have 20 people, like, maybe not. Maybe once we have 1,000, we can start having concerts again. Or I don't know.
I mean, I definitely think she was saying something very important about how you need art and beauty, and you need to look around you and not be too inward and all these things in order to, I mean, there's survival and there's thriving, right?
Yeah.
So I think she was making a big point about thriving.
Yeah. And
Like, what's the point of survival if you don't thrive?
art allows us to engage in abstraction. And that's where things really go downhill for this community once the clones can no longer engage in any type of abstract thought. And this is another thing that I think she did really well. There's a scene pretty late in the book where Mark, I was getting my arrogant guys confused. Mark carves a statue out of snow. It's a statue of a man, and he carves it out of snow. And apparently it's like very accurate. And the Barry brothers, there's one Barry brother who's kind of an ally to Mark. I think he goes by Barry. And he's
Barry
one of the doctors.
brothers, yeah, they're bullies.
Yeah, but one of them is like less bad. And he's the one who's sort of a little bit protective of Mark. And so he sees it and he's thinking to himself, wow, this is really incredible. And he's sort of having a moment. And then the little kids start tearing it up and he's like, don't do that. And he asks them, he says, what is that? And the kids just say, snow. And he's like, no, look at it. What is it? And they're just like, snow. And on the one hand, it feels a little heavy-handed, but on the other hand, I thought, is this like a really platonic ideal of show don't tell? Like, they're showing us that the kid can't look at that and be like, I see a man. The kid is just like, I see a pile of snow. I see a pile of snow. And I thought that was such a good, striking illustration of this kid knows what this substance is, but is absolutely incapable of engaging in any kind of abstraction. And that's where we really go downhill because they can't follow a trail. Like, they can't look at a broken twig and recognize the footstep that caused it. All they can see is the broken twig. So they get lost in the woods. So I think it connects back to why art is important.
I didn't put that together.
Yeah, they can't. That's why they can't follow the trail because they just are like.
I just thought they were scared of the woods.
They're scared of the woods because they can't read it at all. But I think she did a good job of laying a foundation for that with Molly and her skill with maps and map making and sketching, sketching reality, the things that they think they need to know about.
To do that anymore.
Yeah, and that's part of the skill of an artist. And so once we've stamped that out of people, then the things that we think of as hard skills go with it. So I think she's done a good job illustrating how, art things, like things that we consider sort of extras, are part and parcel of necessities. We can't have the one without the other.
Right, and toward the end of the book, with their solution for continuing with the clones who are dying is to basically make specialized workers, like clone groups who all they know how to do is grow and like sow fields and harvest, and all they know how to do is be masons, whatever it is, and they have no other abilities. They can't conceptualize, they can't do anything, and that's like the end of the line for their cloning that Mark escapes.
So imagine how many different kinds of people you would need to do everything that needed doing if only they could only do the one thing.
It's like an expanded. So with Brave New World, they've got like the alphas that are the smart people, then like the gammas that are like the ditch diggers, but this is like times 1,000.
These people took a lot of tape.
Who knows how to make lipstick? There's one clone that makes lipstick. There's one clone that knows how to make deviled eggs.
You don't ever have to be attractive in this society, though, because you're always having sex with yourself. So it's fine.
That's true. Oh, what if you didn't think you were hot? Oh, no.
Well, luckily, they have no sense of abstraction, so they can't have any sense of self.
So this brings me back to my note.
Right.
Matt play. Oh, no.
Oh,
no. Let's see. I had a...
See, it feels like that should be the title of the episode.
I think you're right.
No.
I think you're right, Cody.
Let's see. Oh, here's something that I thought was very funny. This goes back to early in the book when we still have the Sumner family and they're laying their plans for cloning. And they're in like their sort of extended family meeting. And they reveal their plan to clone babies to the whole group. And a lot of people freak the fuck out. And people are screaming, they're pushing, they're grabbing each other, they're gnashing their teeth. And then straight out of Cyteen, Uncle Walt climbs up on the table and says, "We will recess this discussion until tomorrow night at 7. Coffee will be served now, and I understand we have cakes and sandwiches too." It's like in the middle of a riot. he gets up, and I was like, these are white people.
White people will have their cake.
I was giving so much Cyteen.
It was straight out of Cyteen.
This is a funny book to read after Cyteen.
Yeah, it's perfect timing.
Yeah.
It's like our Clone Duology, and they couldn't be more different, but occasionally there's some overlap.
Had this, because the idea that you were going to create people to do jobs, like it doesn't take either one of them very long to get there.
That's true, because in Cyteen, the same thing. Yeah, you're right. They didn't have enough people, so they needed to make people
humans
to
just
do
want,
stuff.
and I think just humans want to have worker bees.
And in Cyteen, they made people who could really only do one thing.
I know.
Like poor Nellie, who could only raise babies. Nellie.
She needed a lot of tape. I willingly read Shakespeare.
I did Shakespeare homework too.
Oh, I did none, so go. Do it.
The title of the book is from a Shakespeare sonnet. The sonnet is about looking at another person and seeing them age and it making you feel your mortality. And the person who's speaking is also feeling their own mortality, right? So I'm curious how that colors the book for you guys.
It's because humans, if you think about the ages of man in this conceit, which is like you're born in early winter and you die in late fall, that's the end of the story for humans. Nature does this forever. Yeah. Back and forth. Spring comes back around.
Doesn't care about us.
Yeah, it doesn't care about us. Like, I don't know how to tie that into the book, but like, I was thinking about that. Like, every other part of nature gets a cycle and we get one shot.
I think it's humans are so afraid of death that they will do anything. Like, what we see is the Sumner family doing everything they possibly can to ensure that they don't die, right? Because we are so afraid of our own end, and we're both on a personal level and on a population level. Like, we are terrified of the end of society. It's why we read post-apocalyptic, because it scratches like that fear, and it also gives us the fantasy that we're going to be the only one left, that we're going to be the one to survive. And so it's just I think her choice of that title, I didn't like the title for a long time. I thought it felt kind of clunky. Mm-hmm. But then when I read the poem, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because what she's talking about here is how far we'll go to ensure that we keep going.
Cody, here's a Hugonauts Easter egg. I was recently on Hugonauts, and we talked about Providence by Max Berry. And I just thought about that when Amy was talking, because it's all about our genes. The genes are just trying to survive.
The extension of our DNA, trying to survive in whatever way, whatever tools we possess. And yeah, that's a great point. In Providence, it's AI, and here it's cloning.
So I think about this a lot. So what's the end goal of our genes? Just to have somebody on this planet? Because the planet's not going to last forever. The sun's going to explode in 10 billion years.
I don't know. I was thinking about, why do these people want to clone themselves so bad? Like, maybe we just need to take the L.
Just party out, man.
Just lay down and die.
I think it's just an imperative.
We can't. By the way, Cody, 4th English major. So anything you would...
Welcome.
Yeah, we're all English majors.
Welcome.
Lovely.
So if you have anything to add about Shakespeare, now's the time. And it's okay if you don't, because I don't.
No.
2 out of 4 ain't bad.
I was just gonna say that I feel like maybe the cloning is the spring and winter, like you were talking about. That Sumner family tries to extend their lives through cloning, and just finds that even through artificial means, we still are gonna die before the seasons change over again, and that they need to go back to individualism to continue humanity.
I hadn't thought of, yes. Like, they tried this one thing, it did not work. They have to go do this. I didn't even think about the nature part of it, though.
Yeah. Oh, the nature, yeah.
And her focus on nature in the book, I think, is purposeful then, because nature is just going to keep going regardless.
And it's doing better without us.
But here's a dash of bad science. The animals all died too, right?
Yeah.
So how do we have all these beautiful trees and we don't have pollinators?
Maybe the bees survived.
I don't think
they start seeing animals by the end.
Yeah,
so there must be something going on.
Nature is healing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here for that.
You can artificially pollinate to a degree.
Nature is healing, but not Philadelphia.
So I love post-apocalyptic stuff, and there's this book called, I think it's called The World Without Us. And it's kind of like life after people, but like things that you wouldn't even think about, like, nuclear power plants would go critical, subways would rot and get full of stuff, and it's fascinating.
That was something I liked about the Station 11 TV series, how they showed like very quickly kind of faded in all the overgrowth. I thought that was really neat.
Thinking about this today led me down an internet rabbit hole, and I started looking at pictures of places in Detroit that are decaying.
Oh, yeah, it's
Very
fascinating.
interesting.
Anytime I see kudzu on a building in the South, I'm like, this is... and this is what people
Your
driving
days are
over
numbered,
it.
building.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Anything else for general discussion that's urgent?
I just had one quick thing.
Go
if I
for
have
it.
time.
Is it urgent, Cody?
I just thought it was. I was wondering if it's like post-apocalyptic, like how early it was in the post-apocalyptic time. You know, obviously that's way popular in modernity. That genre, and it almost feels like it might be the first like prepper book. Like we don't have zombies or any of that kind of stuff,
interesting.
but that first section of the book is they're so like, and then we got the machine, and we spent our money at the right time,
I love
and
that
we got
stuff.
this stuff, and we got all this stuff at the right time. We have it all at the farm. Like, we got it covered. And now so many books are and shows are concerned with that like prepping mentality and real people.
We got the mac and cheese bucket for the last 20 years.
just like here's my list of stuff I got before everything went bad.
That's a good point.
Episode 3 of The Last of Us this season.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I read said there was a wave of popular post-apocalyptic fiction in the 70s, and I didn't look into that far enough. And you know who I think would be a good person to ask is
Olaf.
Olaf, yes, and also Cora Boulert.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have a feminist favorite?
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Molly's
do it.
saying, fuck this place, I'm out.
Yep.
Okay.
That's basically mine, too. Molly and her art and her life with her son and her escaping.
Yay, Molly.
I'm sad they didn't get back together.
I know.
Maybe they will. in the
I
sequel.
couldn't decide
yeah.
how to read the end of her
Me
story. Like,
neither.
did she actually go find him, or did she just disappear into the river, or like?
Yeah, did she put stones in her pockets?
Oh, God. Okay, Cody, feminist favorite.
I had exactly the same thing. Molly's moment
really the
with,
only one.
Molly's moment with Mark.
Yeah.
Just that she birthed him and raised him and escaped herself.
It's kind of like Room in that sense. She's like, here's your crayon.
Yes! Oh my God! It is like
Which could be a speaking to how good of a moment it is, or how much of a lack of a dearth of them there are in the text otherwise.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a weird combo. My feminist favorite and my misogynist moment are in many ways the same. Well, they are the same thing.
this excites me. I'm
So-
excited. I'm excited.
I'm being a little silly, but my feminist favorite is Mark saved the world by liberating a bunch of women who were held captive for breeding. My misogynist moment is that Mark saved the world by kidnapping a bunch of women to use for breeding.
That's perfect. I don't think you can do better than that.
Corporate wants you to pick the difference between these two.
They're the same picture. Okay. So I yield to the rest
Yeah,
of you for misogynist moment.
My misogynist moment was the women got stole.
Mine is when she wakes up and she's been breeded for 18 months, kind of like that scene in Kill Bill, and also very proto Handmaid's Tale in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was what we were talking about earlier with when David sees the adolescent Celia clone. It just looked cringy.
All
right.
right, so cringy.
I know it's gross, but like it would be weird to see like the love of your life young.
Yeah,
It would be weird.
It would be weird.
and
yeah.
it would be hard to understand that it's not the same person.
Yeah, and like
I don't mind
But would
that he
you?
has
But would you then?
feelings.
But would you then proposition them for sex?
Right.
not. Of course not.
Right. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Listen, everybody can have all kinds of weird feelings in life. Some feelings are not for sharing.
That's true.
And those feelings were not for sharing.
There's private feelings and there's public feelings.
You make a good point,
Exactly.
One of
exactly.
one of my favorite Lori-isms is, did he have one friend he could have told that story to?
Do you know that I said that to somebody today? I said it nicer, but I'm in this sci-fi book club group on Facebook, and my enjoyment of that group is like directly proportional to the strategic blocking that I do, because there are a lot of nice people, but there's some real duds in there.
I had to leave, yeah.
And someone today had a long thing about pronouns, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know, people you're talking about are in this group and will see this, and like it's not nice. And I said, if you really feel the need to discuss this, it would probably be better done with a friend than in a public forum.
One
Like,
friend you could have told us to.
Could you text your mom and be like, Mom, I hate these pronouns? Like, was there one person who wouldn't be harmed by this that you could hash it out with?
The
the
world
diet version.
needed to hear his thoughts.
I mean, it was so many paragraphs. Anyway, who's got boob talk?
I have one. So there's nothing terribly obscene in this book, but
Nah.
it's just real weird. So they made no sound to awaken the others as their bodies united in the sexual embrace.
Haley! I had the same one.
It's so
I had
good.
the same one.
The sexual embrace. That's some like. Do you know that SNL sketch with like the two lovers? It's very much like that.
I also have this extreme pet peeve when I'm reading when people's body parts do things. So
Oh,
like what?
their bodies united. Like no, your body is not a thing that can do things on its own.
that reminds me of a classic line from My Dad Wrote a Porno, where Belinda was thinking, and instead what the narrator said was, her mind told her.
Her mind. Gotta say it out loud.
Oh, that podcast
Pomegranate.
is so good.
I should revisit it. It's been a couple
Oh,
years.
it's so
It's
good.
so good. It's done now, too. They
finished?
finished all of them.
Oh God, I only listened to like one season, I think, but
It peaks and then it goes back down.
much like Belinda.
I thought you were going to say, Amy, there's a point where, like, her Celia's breasts reached or lifted or something. And I was like,
breast,
Her breast reached
well,
for me.
I don't want to accidentally scoop Cody. So, Cody, do you have any boob talk?
I didn't have one.
Okay.
Good
So-
move, Cody.
So mine is so like I said, Celia had been really sick after her back then COVID. And so she was still sick. She was very thin. She was cold a lot. And the first time she and David have sex, it says Celia was so thin and pale, and inside she was so warm and alive.
I missed that.
Oh no, her vagina felt like a vagina.
Alive?
Of course it did.
A lot? Is it crawling
It
with
was
bugs?
alive.
It was
No,
warm.
that's
and
gross.
her vagina was warm. It felt like a vagina. He's like, I can't believe this woman is basically a walking corpse, but her vagina is still great.
Oh.
Describing a vagina as alive.
It's fraught
is
with
just
peril.
strange.
Describing a vagina is fraught with peril.
You know,
Don't go to there.
I was going to give her some credit because apart from those couple of weird things, you know, the book is fairly chaste, but there's one part where
Except for the map play.
well
The human centipede.
I just wanted to say it one more time.
When they force Mark to watch his girlfriend getting human centipeded at the end.
but there's one part where I think Ben and the girlfriend are going to have sex in the abandoned cabin, and it's just like, and then they got together, and then they're done. Like she didn't.
And it fades to black.
Sometimes you know, like there's very little good sex writing, and like it's
Well,
sometimes
she
better
she didn't
not
even
to.
try.
Yeah.
It was nice.
In science fiction, there. I mean, there's good sex
I'm
writing
glad
out
she didn't
there,
try more than she did because that one attempt was
but- Yeah.
Be alive.
mean,
not great.
Listen, it's challenging. It's challenging for most writers, I would say.
I'm not going to try it anytime soon.
Nope.
Yeah, I
Okay.
should.
Do we have fantastical food?
What did they eat? I don't remember anything.
Man.
Well, there will be. I understand we have cake and sandwiches.
Yeah. There was
So
sandwiches.
I am not a camper, but every meal Mark made on the road, I was into it. I cannot stop thinking about his grilled fish that he made.
Oh, it did
I
sound
forgot
good.
about the fish.
His
thinking about the
jerky.
fish. Yeah, like
That's right.
that's what I'm here
he
for.
was really into that fish.
He was 14 when he made that first trip. He made it seem like I could do it tomorrow in a canoe. I was like, you go up the Patuxent or whatever.
I also love the idea that he mastered survivalism by reading books. Like, we were talking the other day, Haley asked us because she was at trivia. She was like, what's the name of a such and such sail? And I was like, I don't know. And Haley said, you've read 1 million books about sailing. And I was like, but I don't remember that stuff. So the idea that like he read this library about how to survive in the woods and then just went out and was like, that's radiation poisoning. Yep. Here's how to gut a fish. Here's how to build a canoe because he read a book about it was, I think, overly optimistic.
Well, we know
maybe.
it wouldn't work because anybody who's seen a season of Alone knows
I kept thinking
Yes, I was just going to say that.
that you can go out into the wilderness with all your book learning and even
And
some
starve.
practical experience and starve. Yep.
Even if you get to the gillnet time.
That's right. Even if you have a
make it to
gill net
gillnets.
and you put it out there, you might still die.
I thought so much about Alone while I was reading this. Okay,
The
Cody.
woman that ate all of her own snot.
Oh, how dare you?
I cannot watch that
That's the
show.
only season I've seen. Cody, any fantastical foods?
I actually had the reverse. I did think the camping meal sounded good, but I don't know how they brought all that food with them. And then they can't fish, but they have fish all the time.
That's true.
I thought it was almost fantastical that they were having such nice meals.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Also, they can build a wagon wheel or what is it?
Paddle wheel boat.
A wagon wheel boat, a paddle wheel boat, but they can't. I don't know the choices about what technology they could do and not the ones they could not do.
There's a fair amount of suspension of disbelief you have
Them
to.
trying to sail, I was like, no, that wouldn't.
Okay, so
Yeah, and on a river.
Wasn't there a waterfall at some point?
Upwind, and like trees are coming at 3:00.
That was so funny. I was reading that and I was like, this is so boring, and I love a perilous boat journey. But if I have to hear one more time, tree at 11 o'clock, like I just want to throw this book right now during that part.
One of my favorite terms. So I like to call people goobers that are incompetent, and like these are just a bunch of goobers.
They are.
And I would watch an entire Netflix season of them camping in the woods and like falling off the cliff. Like they're just so dumb.
Well, then you should watch Alone.
They would walk right off of a cliff because they
they're
can't
so
see
dumb.
gravity. So gravity is kind of an abstraction. They probably would walk
Well, my
off
favorite
of a
part of Alone is the first episode because at least 4 men will go into the woods, cry, and go home.
Oh, that is nice.
the first day. And
okay.
sometimes women.
Oh.
So I didn't think anything was particularly fantastical, but I think again with her doing some good writing. The smells of holidays were fixed in David's memory. All the usual smells, fruitcakes and turkeys, the vinegar that went into the egg dyes, the greenery and the thick creamy smoke of the bayberry candles. Boy, when I read vinegar that went into egg dye, I was like,
immediate.
There.
there's
Yep.
the Easter basket, there's all the
Yeah.
cups, there's
Yep.
the eggs. It
The
was
fingers
just,
are blue.
That's and you had that little dipper.
yes,
Yeah.
it was just so it's pause, isn't it? P-A-A-S?
Yeah.
It was just like immediately put me there. So I think that was very effective.
Those first couple of pages are weird because I knew this was a book about clones, and so I thought he was going to be like a weird clone upbringing, and then he wasn't. So
Where are we going with this?
yeah, I wasn't
Oh.
sure.
Did you wonder? So he became kind of a geneticist, right?
Mhm.
And at one point, when he's trying to convince Celia to be his lover, he was like, "We know we don't have any genetic diseases. We can have children. It's safe." And I was like, "Did he become a geneticist because he wanted
to validate.
to
bang
be
his
able to
cousin?
figure out if they could have kids
Like
together?"
that one line was the culmination of his entire academic career.
Yeah, and then he was able to become the whole like architect of a clone society.
It's like if you're ever sleeping with a guy and he's like, "Oh, I'm sterile." I happened to a friend of mine.
Don't believe in kids.
Nope.
Oh no.
Yep.
Okay, soap stuff. Anybody?
Cousin Lovin's up there.
Oh yeah.
I always leave it for you.
Yeah. Easy.
Okay,
Easy.
so
Cousin loving.
the cousin lovin' clones. Obviously, clones are always a little soapy. Cousin romance, specifically when they were teens and they basically got into a fist fight
Oh,
and
yeah.
somehow managed to rip each other's clothes completely off. So they were both naked and panting and at least slightly visibly injured, such that the rest of the family thought that David had raped her.
As soon as I read that, I was like, "Oh no!"
Somehow that happened from them just like being in love and having such intense feelings that they had repressed, that they got in a fight that caused all their clothes to fall off.
That the parents thought it was rape. Yeah,
Man, oh man. And then the dad takes David into the barn planning to beat him for raping his cousin. And then he says his dad just looks at him sadly and doesn't beat him. And I was like, and then we just like leave that. And I was like, did we ever like
Resolve.
do we ever
No.
come to the conclusion as a family that no rape happened? Like I hope so. I mean, I hope so
she
for,
piped up.
well, and I hope so for both of everyone's sake that the truth came out.
And also, why
And
would they assume that it was rape, not just a fight? Like,
Well, I think because they were naked
'cause they were
and
naked, yeah.
he had scratches on him. I don't know, man, but the clothes all coming off during a fight.
Very
all of it.
soapy.
the socks are off.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the socks, like
They're playing
lunge for
strip
the
fight.
foot.
Okay. Last up. Did you like the book?
I did.
Cody.
I also liked it.
I think
Yeah.
I liked it. I think I 3.5 stars it.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
I
Yeah,
mostly liked
that's
it.
right.
It was pleasant.
Yeah.
There were some plot holes, and there was some. It needed to be a little longer, weirdly, to me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I think
We-
some.
but
of
we
the-
don't say that lightly.
We almost
I know.
never say that.
So, yeah, I think I liked it.
Yeah, I did too. I'm still, as we've talked about, I guess at length at this point, I'm still somewhat unclear on what the message is. But I think Cody, you're probably right that too much of any one thing is bad.
Yeah.
Everything,
Maybe the message. Yeah,
Yeah.
the balance.
everything in balance.
This is just one example of what could happen in an apocalypse.
To everything, there is a season.
Yeah, okay.
Weirdly, the only unanswered question I felt left with was like, what happens, like in The Prestige when Christian Bale loses his finger and then his twin has to also chop off his finger so they can keep looking like twins? Like, is that what they all did? Like, what happened? I don't know why that bothered me so much, but I really wanted to know. If someone lost a finger, did all 5 of the other clones chop off their finger?
Did they have a ceremony for the lost for the finger?
Yeah.
Oh, that's like from Fried Green Tomatoes when they bury his leg.
Oh yeah, here lies his arm.
Yeah.
Well, they have that one time Molly and her sisters had one of their clone sisters broke her arm or something, and I don't think they all had to break their arm.
Yeah.
Phew.
No.
So while they will euthanize children who have problems, they're not barbaric enough to break everybody's arm. Okay. So fast. Is this Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
I have arguments for both.
Okay, go.
Well, it's Lord of the Rings because there's a river journey, and the further they get away from home, the sicker they become.
Perfect.
And then it's Star Wars because of incest.
Okay.
That's not bad.
Okay.
I think that the clones argument is too easy. We did it last episode.
That's
with
true.
Cyteen.
That's true.
So I said that as Lord of the Rings because there's an arduous overland journey with groups of people to accomplish a task. Also, there's a slightly oppressive fantasy feeling with all the nature stuff.
That's true.
They are literally clones on the attack, though. But I feel like we've said that so many times. Yeah,
true.
Okay, it's too
the easy
easy.
one.
Everything is Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Cody, do you have an opinion?
I would say Lord of the Rings because it was mostly green in nature and not deserty.
That's true.
True. There's no Tatooine in this.
All right.
No space and no deserts.
That sounds
No crazy technology, no aliens.
basically sounds unanimous. Lord of the Rings.
Woohoo!
You good with that, Amy? Even though you had arguments for both.
No, I'm good with it. I was good with either. So
Okay, and I vote present. I always vote present on this almost all the time. Okay, so it sounds like it's Lord of the Rings. All right.
Where late the One Ring sang.
Oh, yes. I love
did you
it.
just come up with that?
Yeah.
That was good.
He said yes so sadly. Yeah. I think it's great. All right. Coming up next time, is that the
It's Amy's.
Yeah.
Amy's Yiddish Policeman's Union?
Yeah, Yiddish Policeman's Union by Michael.
Policeman's. We're having trouble with that.
Let's try that again. Yiddish Policeman's Union by Michael Shea Bon.
Yay. And that's Amy's pick and also her birthday month.
After that will be The Sword and Stone for my birthday month.
Yes.
And then
after that is my birthday month, and the book I picked is To Say Nothing of the Dog. That's right.
Yeah, more Connie Willis.
Yes. Okay. I think
Cody,
that's it.
when's your birthday month?
September.
That's close enough.
Okay.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Well, happy
Thank you.
almost
Yeah.
birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we'll try to wish you happy birthday in September.
It actually might be your half birthday this month.
Oh, yeah.
Well, happy birthday to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin's is in October. Hey, happy birthday,
Nice.
everybody.
Also,
Good job.
And happy birthday to all of our listeners.
And half of Hugo Girl is turning 40 this year. So
Yeah, we are.
the other half already turned 40.
That's true.
Womp womp.
Okay. I think this is over. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.